Okay, so conscious we're getting towards the end of the day here, but I appreciate you guys listening, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about the market here. I run the Knight Venture Fund, and we've made 40 investments all around the country, only 3 of which are here in Miami, so I'm actually interested in learning more about what you guys are finding as well. We talked a little bit about valuations and about the fact that valuations in Silicon Valley and New York have gotten a little bit crazy. Can you talk more specifically about what you're seeing here? And I guess maybe we can start with Mark, and I know that you're actually raising funding from here, so maybe you can give your perspective as well.
Yeah, I've seen a whole range. For early stage stuff, they tend to be more reasonable. Probably, if the company's maybe on fire doing exceptionally well, it might be approaching a $10 million valuation, but it's probably low to mid single digits for a lot of the stuff I'm seeing. And I think it's just reasonable. It feels actually like 2008 or 2009 on the West Coast. And it's just a lot more flexibility in financing.
Patrick, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I don't want to give the details of Olivier's project, but revenue, product, team, they did it on a much smaller budget than you would expect in the Valley, and they're going and doing a seed level round, traditional convert with, a reasonable cap, but with tons of progress. And the thing the other point, with the amount they've raised here, with the cost structure that you have here, because it's like doubling the amount of time to get to the next need.
That makes a lot of sense. And so David, but you have a $100 million exit under your belt. Now you're building a company here. I mean, how does that affect you in terms of valuations?
Well, I mean, my starting point is different. So my starting point is either someone's going to invest at my numbers or I'll self-fund it. Right. So to be honest, I'm not going to.
I like that answer.
I'm willing to play with my own money, and so I think the people that play with me are going to play at a higher valuation. So what I'm looking at is multiples of what's probably normal for Miami, but I think my investors can make 10x if we do a normal size deal, and they can make a lot more if we do a good deal. And if they don't want to, I'll fund it myself.
Got it. And so there's a lot of talk about 30 to 50-year-old white guys. I think we all kind of fit that description, fortunately or unfortunately. You're in a town that's actually one of the few cities in America where that's not the power structure, actually. And so just wanted to hear more about kind of your experience and how, whether you see that as an asset and how you're integrating into that.
So I personally love it. It feels oddly like I'm in a foreign country, which is actually my favorite part about it. I say that with no disrespect. I literally, every elevator ride I've ever taken in my building, I've had somebody speak to me in a language other than English, and I have the unfortunate side effect of being dark-haired and sort of dark-skinned, and so I think they think I speak Spanish.
They think that if you're blonde hair and blue-eyed. That's just Miami. Yeah.
To me, the scariest thing in being in a startup is you start to believe your own bullshit. Right, and so the biggest risk you have is not that you're going to make poor decisions. It's that you're going to not be aware of the decisions because you're not seeing them fast enough. And or put another way, I like to make a lot of $1,000 mistakes. I try not to make a lot of $1 million mistakes. Being able to be in a culture that's a little more diversity helps. It's amazing how many people, the product I'm building now, as I went around to venture capitalists, I'm selling a product that's clearly targeting the 1% to 2% top end of America, and yet every VC I talked to said, well, that seems like an average product. The price point's almost too low. I highly doubt the rest of this room would feel that way. And so I think it's nice to be in a place with a more balanced view.
Yes.
A big advantage for me for this is that I'm focused a bit on Latin America, looking for opportunities. So since I moved here, I did a trip down to Buenos Aires, and I did a trip to Mexico. And here I just say, random person on the street, hey, I'm going to Buenos Aires. I'm set up, right? I'm set up with very high level people to meet. And I'm going to Colombia in the end of April. I mean, I think there's like more people to meet in 5-minute conversations. I think there's a huge advantage to that because in a daily conversation, you're meeting people who have high level contacts into all these other places. So it's a big advantage for what I'm thinking to do.
There's one thing that's kind of cultural, which I love. I'm from California, and that's definitely an immigrant state, right? I mean, where everything is possible, everyone's pursuing a dream. I would say that I find the same energy here in Miami, and it creates kind of this world of possibility mindset, which I think is really invigorating for a startup community. Very different from say New York, where you see a lot of companies that are kind of attacking old line problems. It's attacking publishing or e-commerce in a certain way or financial services. A lot of great startup energy here.
Can we talk a little bit about talent and the local talent pool? I mean, Dave mentioned that, or believes that entrepreneurs in all over the world are fairly equally talented, but it's just a lot of it is about access to funding. But there's the entrepreneur, and then there's the rest of the company that they need to build around them. And so talent is not just the entrepreneur, but kind of engineers and sales and everything else that you need to build. Can you talk a little bit more about, I don't know if you guys have been here long enough, but does that talent pool exist? Is it harder to find? Is it harder to recruit and that sort of thing?
Well, I actually don't agree with Dave's comment. I don't think that entrepreneurs are equal across the world. I think there are great entrepreneurs across the world, but I don't think it's equal. What I've seen is the CEO pool here is relatively unsophisticated versus other regions. I bet you would be more sophisticated if you were in New Delhi or if you were in Bangkok or Bangalore or some other places. I think a lot of, yeah, I absolutely do. I think there are great entrepreneurs around the world, but what you find is, maybe. I think the hard.
They say the same thing.
What's that?
They say the same thing.
That they think that we're better.
They think their entrepreneurs are not that good.
I,
High density market.
That doesn't surprise me, but I think there is a difference. I mean, having lived in both places and tried to build in both places and spent a lot of time with CEOs in both places, the difference is that every day in the Valley, you've got another guy competing with a very similar view, and so it forces you to at least be a lot more cognizant about what the universe is out there.
Totally true. People come to the Valley because the Valley writes the checks.
The reason is almost irrelevant. The reality is the density is different. And so regardless of why that density is different, there is a density difference. And I do think it affects how sophisticated your average entrepreneur is. It's an entirely solvable problem. What I'm not saying, and you shouldn't hear me say, is there's some sort of weird inherent advantage that people in the Valley are smarter or more sophisticated. I don't believe that's true at all. But I do think they're much more connected and a little bit more aware of the startup infrastructure.
Got it. And okay, so there may or may not be an equal kind of percentage pro rata share of great entrepreneurs here, but there are engineers and all the other people that you need to build the company. Have you guys found in investing in companies here locally or even regionally that's harder to access?
It's interesting because the complaint is different. So if you're in Silicon Valley, your close rate on a candidate is very low because they have many, many offers. Right. So if you're in the Valley, all people do is complain about hiring, and it is, if you're sit on a board, it's all you talk about to the point where it's just nauseating. Here, there's a complaint about hiring as well, but it's just because there aren't as many candidates to pick from. But I think the positive that I'm seeing here is there's one established code school, WinCode, and there's a second that's developing in Miami. They're working with the local entrepreneurs to see what their junior developer needs are, and they're minting those people. So I mean, I think the ecosystem is kind of catching up or on par with the stage of development of the startup world. And so I think especially for junior level talent, you can find it here. I think what's hard to find here are what Dave laughed about and I do too, which is the marketers, the growth hackers, because there just aren't as many people who've been kind of hammering on Google and hammering on Facebook. So I think marketing is difficult. And then I think we'll see as the companies get bigger whether or not they can attract management talent to Miami, because some of that will probably have to be imported.
And if I can just one comment in here is that the reality is most of the engineers in Silicon Valley move there from somewhere.
Absolutely.
That's a reality. And so the second company that I'm looking seriously at investing here, young Ivy League team, one of them lives here now. The other two guys are not here now. One's in Chicago, one's in the Bay Area. And they're committed that if they decide to go full time and raise the money here, that they're going to move here. One of them, both of them, the other two guys work at public tech companies, move from Chicago, and they're going to move here. And they're the talent. The three guys are the four guys are the key talent because they want their they want their money to last longer, and they want to live here. So they really think that they can recruit, because they don't need 500 engineers, they need 10. And they think you can get 10 kick-ass engineers here for lifestyle and for kind of having less dilution on the business they want to build. So we'll see.
Great. Yeah, no, just on that, Rocker Labs, which is kind of a local accelerator. Their internship program consists, the recruiting, as far as I can tell, consists entirely of telling people they'll get an apartment for the summer in Miami Beach, and they're recruiting all their engineers from Canada, and that tends to work really well somehow. You guys all talked about the welcome committee, and you all name-checked my colleague Matt Hagman, who's in the back, which is great. I just wanted to kind of, if there are people here who want to plug in, haven't plugged in, what are the kind of ways that you guys would recommend to do that?
The lab is a great place to start, right? I mean, I work out of the lab. There's a ton of events, great community. There's Waffle Wednesdays, which is another great thing. And if all else fails, just write Matt and he'll introduce you to everybody that matters.
Great. He doesn't get enough emails, so this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Any other recommendations?
For me, it was two guys. It was definitely Matt Hagman, and then the other was Nico Berardi from AGP. And I think between the two of them, I think some of them, they intro me to the same guys, which got me a sense for the size of the community. But those guys were invaluable. I think I'd be in a very different place in Miami without them.
What happens next? I mean, you guys are all kind of growing your businesses, and they're all different types of businesses. What are you planning on doing individually, and what do you hope to see happen in the community? And I guess maybe I'll start with Patrick since.
So, I mean, for me, I guess success will be if I find a company here that I could do the company builder model with, and here could also mean Colombia or someplace nearby. And if I find that entrepreneur who I can really resonate with and kind of match our skills, and I can do it from here and give him or her that level of support that I would do if I was in the Valley, that would be success for me.
I just continue to find great companies. I mean, I look at companies all the time in Miami, and as I said before, I'm really impressed with the deal flow. I thought it would peter out after 3 months. I'd see everything that there was to see, but it's just like this evergreen process where new stuff is coming up, and it's impressive. I think it's phenomenal.
My goals are much less altruistic. I just want another 9-figure exit. So.
Great.
We're saying the same thing, just in a different way.
Okay, so we only have 3 minutes left, so I apologize. I wanted to save more time for questions. If there are any questions out there, please raise your hands, and I'll just keep talking until I see a hand raised so it doesn't get awkward, or maybe not. There you go.
Yeah. Our fund is based in Central America, Costa Rica. We are trying very hard to get visible on the sharks here in the States.
Are the sharks entrepreneurs or venture capitalists?
Venture capitals.
All right.
Yeah. So I wonder, how do you think will be our best approach to get to you people in the States, bringing some of our pipelines to you, because there is the Dave approach that is locally based in Mexico or in different kind of ecosystems that he is building, but you are staying here. So how do you think we can get in contact or be visible to you in order you to invest in our startups?
You guys are the you people he's referring to.
I would make one recommendation. I mean, you can approach people individually, but I would also, if you haven't, approach some of the angel groups like AGP. AGP processes a lot of great companies, and a lot of companies are getting funded that go through there. It's a great way to access a lot of investors in the market.
Yeah, I would just say that the further you get from home, the greater the delta between valuation and traction needs to be in order to attract people's attention. And so, I mean, Miami is a lot closer than Silicon Valley in that respect, both culturally and geographically. But that's the expectation, is the further you go from where you are to your investors, the more you have to impress them. That's been my.
Yeah. The thing that jumps off the page to me is that you're a filter. Like I feel like the role you're playing there is a filter, because who's got time to go and understand the Costa Rica market? It's tiny, right? Reality, it's not a lot of people. And I say that in a way to challenge you a little bit, because if you have something interesting there, if you have a business there that's servicing the U.S. and because that's our big market, if you're servicing Costa Rica, you don't need the venture money, right? So I would say if you have a really good company that has some unique dynamics following Dave's path, then pick that one and go market that one. I would say go market that one idea and show people that there's an opportunity in Costa Rica. Like you can talk to me afterwards. If you have something that is interesting and exciting and meets all the things, I'll come to Costa Rica.
Sure.
That's what I do.
Nice. There's your answer right there. All right.
But it's got to be cool. But it's got to be cool.
All right. So there was one question right there. Yeah.
Hey guys, Silicon Valley expat 2006, moved to Miami. So I was preceded you guys, and people have been laughing at me for 9 years about moving to Miami. So what's been the reaction from the Valley to you guys all moving from there? And is everybody they following you, or are they saying send me your best deals?
They're saying, are you still investing? Are you still active? That's what they say. I can't believe it. Looks like you're having too much fun on the beach. That's the feedback I get. Of course, I have to say I am active, and they're always interested in good deals, no matter where they come from.
Well, so you see Dave's slides. I still get people say, "Really, Miami? You? Really? Tell me more about this." And then they're interested when I tell them the interesting stories and the people I'm meeting and stuff like that. But it's a lot of skepticism.
The only thing I'd add is when I told most of the VCs, most of them said we're not going to do a deal in Miami, and yet now a whole bunch of them are saying we're still interested in funding you anyway. And I've told them I'm not moving to the Valley to do it. So those are the terms.
The follow-on to that is I do think that people have changed just in the year since I decided to come here. People have changed that view, and it could just be terrible weather in New York. Or it could be that more critical mass is showing up here and people are having a good time and still being successful. So maybe people are getting the hint.
There was another question in the back. I don't know how much more time we have, but.
Great. I want to thank Dave very much for bringing pollen from the West Coast to kind of raise the sophistication level here in South Florida, and also to Matt Hagman for sponsoring this. My name is Reese Williams. I'm with New World Angels. We've done 15 local investments and 11 follow-ons. We've deployed like $9 million. We do Florida only. One of the things, being local people, we don't know whether to go with West Coast terms or East Coast terms. We look at the Fenwick and West survey. We have entrepreneurs who are very sophisticated, come to us from the Bay Area, like you guys are in the dark ages. Then we have East Coast folks that saying, get with it, we won't do that, et cetera. I'm just kind of curious what type of terms you look for, or what kind of guideposts you might use for your local investments. And then also, we'd love to play with you guys. We do between $500,000, $1.5 million size rounds. We have 51 accredited investors, and we're perfect for Series A. Any local deals you do, we'd love to see. And Dave, we'd love to invest in your fund too.
Great. Any comments on East Coast versus West Coast valuations?
I think it's so situational and dependent on stage. I just would say, I look for a more reasonable valuation.
The only thing I'd say from the entrepreneur side, be a whore. That's kind of your job, right? So if you can do a deal at better terms, which East Coast terms tend to fund lower, do East Coast deals. And if you have to fund West and they're still good enough that you're willing to do them, go West. But I mean, I kind of expect you from the entrepreneur standpoint to do the best deal for the fund that you can do, and you should expect me to do the same.
I'll just add that our last deal was actually a Miami deal. Is further along, and they actually went out and raised their first dollars from the West Coast and got West Coast terms, and then came back here locally and got exactly the same terms because because they could do it, and they got 10x revenue, and that's just what the market was willing to bear, and so I think it's certainly possible to do either one of those things if you have the right traction. So unfortunately, we're out of time. We're all going to be around afterwards, and hopefully more Mai Tied up, and so more accessible. And but thanks everybody for your time.